Hi everyone, welcome to today's lesson. So the big picture is Chovy, and the learning focus today is to be able to replicate the work of the artist Chovy using watercolours and black pen. So the first thing is I've grabbed a range of images by the artist, and you can see them up on the screen there. And I would like you to describe them with the person next to you. What can you see? Okay, you might want to pause the video here so you've got a few moments to discuss them. How would you describe that type of art? So you might have said things like, and don't worry if you've come up with perhaps alternative ideas. Here are some suggestions that you might have come up with. So you might have said that they were mainly blue in colour or had quite a blue background. You might have said or noticed that they were of sea creatures or fish, that they're quite sketchy, you know, they're not perfect. It's got lots of little marks in it. You might have noticed the sort of black pen outline, which is really nice. You might have even said that it's quite like a cartoon, perhaps a cartoon effect. You might have said something to do with the shapes. All of them really, really lovely answers. Again, you could have come up with a whole range of alternative suggestions. These were just a few that I sort of thought of when I was looking at the images by the artist. Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do is read a little bit of information about the artist Chovy and stick it into your sketchbook. I've actually got a piece of paper here all about the artist, and I'll just extract sort of a few key pieces. In fact, actually, the sort of first sort of sentence or paragraph is really interesting. So it says, "Hi, I'm Matt Hayward, an artist based in San Diego, where I create paintings in my garage studio." So he actually works at home. My works sort of combine, he's used the word fuse there, which means to combine ocean themes, both and above, below the water, sort of above and below the water there. He speaks about how he uses vibrant colours. He says he feels he's got a bit of a street art style. He often works on a canvas. So those are sort of like the large square or rectangular boards you may have seen. But recently he's actually been sort of hand painting skateboards. Okay, he talks about how he's got a sort of a decorative sort of graffiti style as well there. You might be able to sort of read a bit more. I really recommend that you sort of highlight or underline perhaps some keywords. You could even just get, if you don't have access to a piece of paper like this, you could just get some information about the artist up on your board and perhaps copy a few facts down about him. Once you've done that, you should stick it in your book. You can grab some images if you want to, if you haven't got the sheet like I'm showing today. I'm not going to stick it down just because I want to be able to move it around and just sort of show you on my camera viewpoint today. But yeah, do stick that information down into your sketchbook. Okay, it's for this task, I think if you are working in a sketchbook, it's best to have your sketchbook sideways, similar to basically what I've got on the screen there. And the first task you'll need to do is have a go at drawing a box, okay? You don't have to do it with a ruler, just a nice box. Sometimes, the thing with a ruler, sometimes you can put it in the wrong place. So I tend to just sort of neaten it up afterwards. So I'm just going to draw a nice little box on my page here. I actually probably should have done it the other side, just because when I move the drawing down, you're not going to be able to see it too well, but we'll work around that. Okay, so just draw a nice faint box. I've just sketched a sort of one in there that is about proportionately similar to one of the images that you like. Okay, so I've gone for this sort of one here. I really like this image. I quite like this one here. So they're slightly longer along the bottom than they are in terms of their height. Okay, some of his images might be sort of more square. Then you might want to draw a sort of square box. That's fine. Okay, so have a go at adding the box in the middle there. And then basically your task is using watercolours and a black pen to have a go at recreating your favourite Chovy image. You could even add colour text around the box that you have drawn if you want to, sort of little test sections, little coloured bits of writing, little annotations similar to my screen there. I'll sort of talk through that process now. The one thing I will say is if you are going to be using watercolors and then sort of applying a sort of black pen over the top, do sort of make sure that your watercolor page is dry first, because if you go over with your black pen and it's not dry, it does actually, weirdly enough, it dries out the felt tip. So you do need to make sure that your page is dry before you go over with black pen. Don't sort of switch between the two unless they are dry. Okay, so it's sort of like watercolors, give it a bit of time, maybe a couple of minutes just for it to dry, and then go over with your black pen afterwards. Okay, so the first thing you'll need to have a go at doing then is just sort of sketching in the shape of the fish. Now I've got that image up on the screen. That's the one that I liked the most. And there's a couple of things to sort of notice. If you're copying or working from an image, it's to really look at the positions of things on the page. So I can see that the mouth of the fish is got a little bit of a gap between that and the left-hand side of the page. So I'm just going to draw a rough little line. I'll just move my camera over so you can see it just a little bit better. I will press a bit harder in a moment, guys. And I can see that the top of the sort of fish, the head shape here, goes up to that top corner. So I can see it sort of comes down like that. Okay, just sketching it in. You don't have to be too perfect, okay? And I can see the mouth sort of comes in, down, and then back out, and then round, curve into the bottom there. I can see that we've got a bit at the top. We've got the eye quite close to the mouth in here. I quite like how it's quite sketchy. I won't add too much detail because I think I'm going to have a go at doing that with my black pen. Okay, so just add in a few little marks just to indicate where things are for me. Okay, so once I've sort of sketched that out, I know it's very faint on your screen there. The next task is for you to just use, I'll get my paintbrush, just use a little bit of watercolours. You can, if you want to, like on my screen, just sort of test the colours around the page before you place them down. So I'm just going to go for this sort of yellow colour I've got just slightly off screen. I can sort of show you there actually. Okay, so I'm just making that colour. And I'm just going to do it down the sides. I'm not going to sort of place it on my image, and I'm just going to check that that color is similar to the one on the page, and it is. So quite happy with that. I don't need to mix it with anything, and I can see that it's this sort of yellow band in here. Okay, you don't have to be too accurate with this. We're just trying to pop in perhaps some color elements, and I can see that we've got some lovely little yellow circles just in places, a couple of little yellow sort of lines coming through at the top there. Okay, another colour then. Is there anything else you can see on that image on your screen there, either the one in my view or the one on perhaps your screen at the moment that I'm trying to copy? What colour could you see? Some of you might be shouting out sort of pinks or blues. Yeah, we'll go for that sort of pink and purple colour. So to get that, I'm going to mix a little bit of red. So I've got a bit of reds there, and I'm actually going to then grab a tiny bit of blue, I think. Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? I think I liked it slightly lighter. Okay, so maybe that sort of colour. So I'm just putting like little test swatches just to the side. Can you see that? So I'm just testing my colours. And then what I can do is just go back to that image. I'll just tilt the camera down again for you guys. I can go back to my image, and then I'm just going to pop in a little bit of that lovely sort of pink colour that's sort of coming in. Maybe a bit more red actually. Probably got a bit too much. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so I'm not doing it all over. I'm just really trying to look at the image and just have a little look, see where there's some sort of splashes of colour. And I'm trying to sort of replicate the artist's style. So I would probably suggest that he probably works quite quickly. He doesn't work too accurately, I don't think. I think he sort of works just sort of looking at bands of colour. This will look beautiful on a skateboard deck. I might do a second tutorial for this lesson actually, and we'll have a little look at some skateboard decks. So watch out for that lesson at a later date as well, just because I know he talks about that's the sort of way he's going at the moment. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I can see little bits of blue. I'm just going to add a little bit of blue, the sort of blue bits in here maybe. Let's get a bit more. You see that? I'll pop my watercolour here. You can't quite see it. I'm trying to get it all in one view, really. So I'm just going to add a little bit of blue around here. Like that. There's quite a bit of white as well. Maybe a little bit more yellow just round here, sort of in places, and a bit in there. Like that. Okay, and then round the outside we've got that lovely blue with bits of green. I'll start with the bits of green actually. So I'm just mixing up a little bit of green there. Just takes a few seconds for the watercolours just to sort of get going really. So I'm just going to add bands of green. You can, again, like I said, just on the side, if you weren't sure of a colour, it does look really nice if you do little tests, okay, just to check that it's working. You could even call your teacher over to perhaps sort of help you try to replicate a colour. You could point to a colour and say, you know, I can't quite mix that colour, could you help me? I'm sure they'll be able to sort of give you some tips and ideas as to how you can make that colour. Okay, so the last little bit, I'll add a nice blue background. I think it's quite a lightish blue. I want to get this colour actually. Yeah, that's a nice colour. It's quite a bold blue, just coming round and in here. You could even use a little bit of felt tip, perhaps, if you want to. I quite like felt tips. A lot of people don't tend to like them to create artwork, but I think depending on how you use them, you can create some really nice outcomes with them, depending on how neat you are. I'm just going to smudge all that down a little bit more. Just getting a bit more blue in here. I want it to kind of dry. I'm trying to do it quite faintly so I can let it dry all in one sort of go, really. Don't worry if you go out of the box that you've sort of drawn, you can neaten it back up afterwards, okay? So I'm quite happy with that. I can fill some extra bits. Okay, I'll put that to one side, my watercolours. You will need a few moments for it to dry. Like I said, you'll probably notice there with my video, I wasn't putting a huge amount of water on the page. Okay, I was just putting small amounts. I was hoping that, I'm just going to dab it with my hand a little bit actually. I wanted it to sort of dry. I'm going to use my gloves to absorb any of the water so we don't have to allow for sort of drying time. But yeah, I put a small amount of water really, so the page wasn't soaked, okay, and just using it. Yeah, that feels reasonably dry. Oh, I smudged a little bit over there, but that doesn't matter. Okay, I'll add my box back in. I quite like the box being drawn in quite a sketchy way, which is why I didn't use a ruler today. I know often I talk about using a rulers, but I think it sort of matches his style really well. Okay, so then I'm just going to go over some of those lines that I started to draw. So that beautiful sort of sketch line down here. Can you see how I'm doing it in a sort of sketchy way? I'm not doing it accurately, so I can see how he's got some lines here. I'm just using a sort of black felt tip there, and I'm just going to add lines going at the top. Probably need to put a bit more pink on here, sort of looking at the image, that sort of pink and purple colour. Just sort of fades away there. And then I like the mouth shape, so I'm just going to copy in here part of the mouth. You see how it comes down like that. You can probably see it from your screen actually. Let's go. Probably needed the band here, I think. Let's go there. And then up. Okay, so don't feel like you've got to draw this perfectly. Okay, it's fine to make mistakes for like his kind of style. Can you see how he's got like multiple sort of lines? It's not perfect. So I'm really starting to work over the top. I really like the little lines on the. You can use a thinner pen. I might swap to a thinner pen in a minute just to add an extra sort of effect. Quite like that there. I like how there's some sketchy lines. I like how he's got some bits sort of going back. It really shows how he's sort of working. I think he's trying to sort of add some gills in here and scales, which is quite nice. Let's add that eye in because that's quite nice. I like how he's got, it's like an odd sort of shape. It's not quite circular, is it? He's got some lines up here. He's got like a sort of a brown colour up there, which is quite nice. Again, once you go onto the black pen, you really shouldn't go back with your water, and I'll sort of show you why, which is really important why you have the colours done. But if you're careful, you can sort of get away with just doing that. Let's add some little shapes in here like that. Okay, so I'm happy with that there, and I'll show you what happens if I was to go back with a little bit of water. You'll see, I'll do it up here because actually it's not so bad. Can you see that the black felt tip starts to smudge, which might be quite a nice effect in places. It sort of creates this sort of water wash, but really probably only a very small amount. If you then try to, like you were like me, like, oh, actually I needed a bit of brown perhaps at the top here, what tends to happen is your paint will start to run into the black pen and you'll end up, you see that there, with a bit of a mess. Okay, so try not to go back to the sort of watercolours. Okay, in places you can add sort of little test swabs if you want of colour. You can add little notes. Obviously put that sheet just at the top there. I've got some images of the artist's work and then a lovely copy. Okay, you could fill the whole page around the image as well. Okay, so around, I haven't done that today. I've just concentrated on just sort of like a nice little copy of his work there like that. Okay, the final thing then, guys, before I've sort of run out of battery again, it's getting really, really low. This is an optional task, is for you to have a go at creating a really lovely drawing here of a sort of mussel shell. I've got some images, but you can actually, if you've got access to them in your classroom, work from one in sort of real life. Okay, so perhaps you might have one there that you can use. I'm just going to turn my page over and just do a very, very quick sort of pen drawing with a little bit of watercolours. This is just an optional task. You don't have to do that. Okay, so I've got the sort of the mussel shell there. I have got some images as well as the ones on your screen. I'm just going to put the images just to one side. It's quite hard to see it on the camera, the beautiful colours. I might keep it upside down actually, and then you can see the colours more, because when I turn it that way it does look quite dark. So this is an optional task. You don't have to do this. This is more about looking at the lines and the shapes that you can see. So I'm going to have a go at sort of copying the sort of pen drawing on the screen there. You can do a watercolor version as well, which is what I'll do. I'll just have a little sketch of this one. I'm just going to copy a combination of sort of that one on the screen there, and then it's just sort of going backwards and forwards. If you look really closely, you can't see it on the shell that I've got actually, but it does have these real beautiful lines inside it that sort of go curved around the outside. Don't worry if you make some mistakes. I think it needed to be slightly wider. I quite like there's some bits that have got a bit of a gap as well. There's almost like a bit of a break in the pattern, and then perhaps a few little bits there. Okay, so you can really have a go at drawing this real nice sea mussel. I selected these images because I think some of the ones I found have a little bit of a sort of Chovy-esque style to them, the sort of watercolor black pen look. You could then have a go at drawing a sort of lovely one like the one on your screen, or like a watercolor one. Again, I'm just having a go. I think I'll do pencil first for this one. So just sort of sketching it. It's sort of like a shape like this, and then comes round, probably not quite as curved as that, and then just in there like that. And then what I would probably have a go at doing is just using a similar technique to before, using the watercolors to just really try and look at those bands of color. Okay, so I can see, I'm just using the one on the screen there. It does have a little bit of a lighter sort of brown color, We've got some lovely sort of blues going into a sort of red sort of shape in there. We do have some bits that are sort of left without any. I'm going to use my paintbrush quite dry, I think, actually. I might not add too much water to it. I'm just dipping my paintbrush back into the water pot just to add a little bit and a bit around there, just following the shape. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. And again, once that's dried, you could perhaps be a little bit neater if you want to, and then maybe have a go at just copying and adding a sort of black pen. You can use your black pen to add a bit of a wash if you want to. I quite like how it's got a bit of a band around there. And then it's got another one sort of around here. Like that. That's really nice. I like the shape in there. Okay, so you can add perhaps some darker elements. Okay, don't go back to the sort of black pen once you're done. This applying the sort of black pen does really have to be the last sort of area. Okay, so I'm having a go at just copying that as a little extension task there. Again, you don't have to do that depending on how long it takes you to create the Chovy piece of work. Okay, that's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Bye, everyone.